Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. Donald Trump's legal problems finally caught up with him in New York this week, with prosecutors ready to face a head-on court battle. But this case might end with more of a whimper than a bang. We'll explain why. A former detainee at Guantanamo says that Ron DeSantis personally oversaw his torture while he was being held in the military prison. In your toilet paper, well, it might actually be poisoning you. We'll bring you more of that disturbing detail. All that and more, it's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. Donald Trump's luck might have finally run out in New York as prosecutors are ready to take on the former president for his hush money payment to adult star Stormy Daniels. Ring of Fire's Farron joins me to talk about it. Wow, what a case. You know, as I look at this, I love to see all the law professors line up on a case like this. And if you read the law professor's take on it, the case may be DOA. I mean, they say that because, yeah, he can win. The prosecutor can win in New York. I mean, you're going to have a blue juror, you're going to have blue judges. He can win there. But the appellate issue is really sticky here, isn't it?
It truly is because, you know, they have these interlocutory appeals, which basically means before you even get a judgment in that jury trial, assuming you even go that far, the defense can appeal this. And they can basically pick it apart. Say, we're going to appeal this. We're going to appeal the statute of limitations. Mm-hmm. We're going to appeal on this piece of evidence. We're going to appeal this. They can tie it up possibly for years with these appeals.
Well, okay. So first of all, you move to dismiss. I think let me make a prediction. The move to dismiss is going to be somehow centered on a constitutional question. The constitutional question is, can a state prosecutor go ahead and piggyback a federal claim with the state claim? The underlying claim in the state case is the records, the business records fraud, where apparently, if you believe what's said here, Trump said to his lawyer, Cohen, go ahead and pay off McDougal and pay off Stormy Daniels, and then disguise the payoff, make it look like it was legal services, and then we're gonna open an account in offshore. It's going to be an offshore account. You can pay through there and disguise it. If they pin all that, it certainly looks like intent to me. I mean, I think the intent question is pretty straightforward. But I got to tell you, this case fails. It fails on a constitutional level. And I think Bragg, maybe he's just hoping he can take Trump out of the picture. He certainly can. But with interlocutory appeals, with a number of gyrations that the defense is going to be able to do on this case, I think you got a due process argument here. I mean, that's a fundamental due process argument, and that is that, you know, you've got to be able to say, first of all, did Trump know when he was doing this that it was violating this statute, this new law that has been created by Bragg? You see what I'm saying? He's creating a new law. And if you look at the best case for him, is to say, it's a due process argument, so let's assume I did that. Let's assume I told Cohen that he could do that. I didn't know that there was this thing that was invented by Bragg, and therefore it is a due process argument. There's so many ways that he can delay this. There's so many ways that the presidential election can be over by the time this is done, and Bragg could come out looking like a damn fool. I'm sure he's aware of that. I like that he's taking a chance. I like that he's taking a shot at it. Who knows?
Well, to me, the whole thing is weird that he chose to revive this whole Stormy Daniels issue in the first place. We know from last year when Alvin Bragg took over, he actually squashed the investigation and the pending indictments that Mark Pomerantz and Cyrus Vance had already written for the actual financial crimes, the bank fraud, the tax fraud, all of that. They were ready within days to indict. Bragg came in and said, no, we're not going to do
Right.
that.
Well, explain that to me. He saw it. It was ready to go.
They had the evidence.
Everything.
They had the testimony. It was all nicely compiled. And Pomerantz said, all right, Bragg, you're in charge now. What do we do?
Why did he not take his shot then?
We have not gotten a clear answer on that, unfortunately.
Okay.
Because to me, that was the slam dunk.
I agree.
And those
I
were
totally
far more serious than what we're dealing with here. If you take either of the things basically that Trump is accused of here, I gave more money to a campaign through the in-kind contribution than was allowed, you're not going to go to jail for that. The falsification of the business records in New York is a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
So you're not going to jail for that. So why did Bragg say, okay, we've got these real felony charges here.
Right.
I want to look at the misdemeanors.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Okay, let's assume that he says, yeah, I did it, but I did it thinking I was only, at best, it was going to be a misdemeanor. Now Bragg comes along, the New York, prosecutor, state prosecutor, invents a new law. I didn't even know about it. It's a due process argument. Look, hey, let's do this, just so all those people who are going to get angry because we say that he could actually prevail here, let's say Bragg's going to win. Does that make you feel better? It's just not the truth. It's not the truth. Bragg can do a lot to Trump here. He can certainly affect the presidential election process with primaries and in the run. But when you drill down on this, Bragg is going to have a lot of explaining to do. Why didn't they prosecute the first time when they had him? Statute was good, everything was good, it was all there, and then Bragg has to go back and invent a new law. He has to invent something that's never been done, and he creates a due process argument for Trump. But for all y'all that get angry that we're trying to talk both sides of this and let you see the other side, we'll agree Trump's going to be prosecuted, Trump's going to be convicted, if that'll make you feel better. But the truth is, at the end of the day, this is a problem.
Well, and even if I think if he does elevate it to a felony, secures the conviction, survives the appeals, I still don't think he's going to jail.
No, he's not.
I mean,
He's
so
not.
that's
But
the other part of it.
Look, they want to take their shot. This is a Soros appointed prosecutor. Soros was the money behind it. And that's been Soros's plan, is to put progressive prosecutors in places that he can use politically. I just think he's asking Bragg to do a little too much here. He's really stretching to get Bragg to do what Bragg's having to do. And I think in the long run, it hurts Bragg.
We could have already had a trial had he just gone with the initial charges that they had when he took over that office.
Absolutely.
It would have been done a year and a half ago.
They had Cohn on the ropes. He was on the ropes. They had Pecker. What's the guy's name? Pecker.
Pecker.
David Pecker with the National Enquirer. They had him on the ropes. They had Weiselberg. Was it Weiselberg?
Weiselberg.
They had Weiselberg on the ropes. They had everything lined up. And Bragg comes in and says, no, we're not going to prosecute now. I'm going to go and I'm going to prosecute later with something that has constitutional flaws all over it. That's my take on it. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis doesn't talk much about his time as a JAG officer at Guantanamo Bay, and that might be because detainees at the prison say that he was personally involved in torture that they experienced. Okay, first of all, this is a bigger story than the DeSantis part of it. DeSantis, if you take, we beat on DeSantis every week, but here he was a JAG officer. He was looking through a fence. He was trying to say, these are standards that we have to follow. It was force feeding. Force feeding is not, under all the treaties is not torture. But I mean, the attack on him, it's just going to be a pile-up attack. This is just one of them. Give me your take on it. I think this is a bigger story than DeSantis, because if you go after DeSantis on this, you got to go after all of these people who knew exactly what was Obama. All of Obama's people knew exactly what was going on there, right?
Well, and see, that's the problem, is that not a single person was held accountable. When this began under the Bush administration with the torture, not just at Guantanamo, I mean, the Abu Ghraib pictures that were all over the media, they tried to pin it on one or two individuals. They even claimed one of the women involved in torture, when she was born, she had the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck, so it starved her of oxygen. And they said that's why she ended up torturing. But this was legalized to a degree by Alberto Gonzales, by George W. Bush himself.
The force feeding with these prisoners who were saying, look, I'm going to starve
We're on a hunger strike because we're being held here on no charges, And this individual who's got a new book out and he says Ron DeSantis was right there watching as all of these horrible things are happening to me. He was released after 14 years with no charges at all. So we just held him and plenty of other folks for over a decade.
Yeah.
And then eventually said, all right, you can go home.
What was going on back then is you would have you'd have tribes that this person in this tribe hated this person in this tribe. So they would tell the U.S. government about it. They would tell the military about it. They would take that person prisoner and put him in Guantanamo. It was just infighting.
Yeah.
A lot of it was just pure crazy infighting, and it took us years to figure that out. And this guy, as you say, was there for 14 years, and he was, I guess, you can't explain it any other way. He's bleeding through the mouth. The force feeding is not just stick a tube down somebody's nose and everything's okay. But the story is DeSantis was JAG officer. He was there at the time. There's a lot worse stories about DeSantis than that.
Yeah.
The stories that are taking place in Florida right now are horrendous. What he's doing to consumers in Florida is horrendous. And so if we look at DeSantis as a potential presidential candidate, we have to say, is he going to do the same thing nationally? And there's a big history of him really abusing consumers in Florida.
And there is. And to me, this story with this prisoner's new book is not even really the DeSantis story. It's the story of how we just hit the 20-year anniversary this week of the Iraq War. Mm-hmm. Nobody has been held accountable for any part of it, whether it's the torture, the lies leading up to it. Colin Powell walking into the UN with his little vial saying, oh, this is proof right here.
Complete lie. He admitted that, they lied to me and I lied to the UN.
The aluminum tubes, the yellow cake, all of this.
Condoleezza Rice lied to her. She should have known a lot more, but the whole thing was a lie. Nobody's prosecuted. Nobody's held accountable. Then it flows over to the Obama administration. Nothing changes there either.
Right. Obama comes into office. He's got this stack of evidence, the Gonzales torture memos, all of it. And Eric Holder, his new AG, says, we're going to look forward, not backwards.
Yeah, Eric Holder did that because he was trying to... Eric Holder didn't do that because of the war issue. Eric Holder did that because he was trying to protect all of his pals on Wall Street who had burned down the entire damn economy, who lost $13 trillion for the U.S. economy. That's who he represented. He represented those white-collar criminals with his law firm, Covington Burling. And so he comes in and said, we got to look forward. We can't look backwards. Nobody gets prosecuted for anything under Eric Holder's watch. But I guess this is a story from the standpoint somebody can, they can make hay with it. But at the end of the day, there's so many more important stories about DeSantis' abuse of voters, abuse of citizens, abuse of consumers than this story. Toxic chemicals have been found in all brands of toilet paper all across the globe, raising alarm concerns about the dangers that consumers are exposing their bodies to daily. Again, you've heard it before. I tried the first cases ever tried dealing with this PFAS product up in the Ohio River Valley. Tried 5 of them. That's the first time that anybody even learned about it. They made 2 movies about it. One was called Dark Waters. The other one was called The Devil We Know. Terrible, terrible history on this chemical. Now we find it's in toilet paper.
Yeah, it's especially troubling. As you know, this thing can cause all kinds of endocrine problems, problems with fetuses, every cancer imaginable, basically. It's poison. It is pure poison that we as humans, as other species out there as well, 98% of us already have this in our system. We're drinking it in our water. The EPA has done nothing. They're finally saying maybe we're going to come out and start regulating this. But with it being so prevalent in all the water, it gets into all of the plants, and that's, of course, where we end up with the problem that it's now in our toilet paper.
Why do you think it's such a yawn story? There's stories like when we talk about climate change, it's a yawn. We talk about the environment, most of the time it's a yawn. This is a yawn story. This is where people don't understand what we're talking about here. I guess maybe we just haven't broken through. But it causes cancer, it causes birth defects, it causes brain issues, neurological issues, it causes gastrointestinal issues. We tried those cases. I personally tried those cases up in the Ohio River Valley, actually tried them in Columbus, Ohio, over a period of about 2 years. this is bad stuff. But again, people are going to say, I don't know what PFAS is, therefore I'm not worried about it.
Well, and a lot of them think, oh, well, if I'm already drinking it, if it's already in my body, clearly I have no problems right now, so I'm going to be okay. Maybe it'll flush itself out. But it doesn't do that. It's bioaccumulative.
Every time you get exposed, it builds up more in your body. It's in the environment for 1 million years. If it's in the soil or the water, it's there 1 million years, and it has the capacity to cause horrendous physical illness. But, again, you'll see this will be, I don't know.
Well, and folks need to understand, too, with it being in the toilet paper, you can actually absorb it through the skin. So it's not like, but I'm not eating toilet paper, it's not going to get, nope. It can be absorbed through your skin, through any body opening. It's horrendous, and people, again, don't care. And maybe it's because they feel there's nothing I can do about
maybe
this.
it is. But we'll keep talking about it anyway. A third major drug company has announced that they're cutting the price of insulin, but Senator Bernie Sanders says that's just a start. He wants across-the-board cuts for all prescription drug because they're making 2,000, 3,000% markups on drugs. And Congress won't take action. And the White House won't take action. But didn't I see Biden just last week doing a victory lap like he's the one that caused the insulin prices to go down? I actually saw that.
Yeah.
He was taking credit for that. And tell the story. Tell how it actually happened.
Bernie Sanders he's been on top of this issue for years. In the 2020 campaign, he traveled with a group of American diabetics to Canada so they could buy their insulin. So he's literally been on the front lines on this, and he had threatened, okay, Sanofi, all you other drug makers, I'm going to haul your butts into the Senate, and you're going to sit here and you're going to explain to Americans why we're paying these 2,000% markups and the rest of the world is paying 100% markup. And so they said, okay, we'll lower the prices. We don't want to have to do this. We want everything to be cool. But that was Bernie that did that. Bernie made the threats,
he was the only
and they
one
reacted.
Congress talking about it. He was the only one that came forward and said this is wrong. Now he's saying we need to do it with all the pharmaceutical companies on all the pharmaceuticals. Listen, this is a product. About full disclosure, I am suing this industry. I'm suing them for antitrust, price fixing. The complaints been filed. We're filing those complaints all over the country. The fact that they're lowering it now has no effect on the lawsuit. They've made so many billions of dollars stealing money from the American public. But the point is, what you're going to find in this case is they all knew exactly how to set the prices. There were meetings where they discussed issues. They sent emails. They sent all types of information from company to company, and all of the prices went up in lockstep. A product that cost $7 to make was being sold for $275. And so, thank you, Bernie. I guess Biden can take a victory lap for it, but at the end of the day, this is the guy that made it happen.
Well, and for anybody who wants to argue, they've got to make their money back so they can make new wonderful drugs. Listen to this. Both the stock for the companies that cut their insulin prices, their stock went up, and their profits went up because they were actually able to sell more because people could actually afford it now. So they made more money by lowering the prices.
But we are coming after you. Lower the prices. You have made so many billions of dollars, Mr. Insulin Company, and you can't run away from what you've done to the American public. CNN tried to rebrand their network recently, and the results actually, they're even worse than before. Viewers are shutting off the network at a rate that suggests that CNN could be a footnote in the history books if they can't find an audience. When I looked at this story, the thing that occurred to me, why has there not been a shareholder derivative suit making Zucker, that idiot, the target of that suit? Zucker came in, he thought he could make some quick advertising money by taking the programming completely, utterly to attack, a left attacking the right. Well, even as it was happening, shareholders were saying, what the hell's going on? You're losing audience. Zucker, and I bet he has another job somewhere. I bet the industry is so incestuous that this idiot that destroyed this is a credible network at one time. This was where they reported the news. And so the issue, the shareholders were saying, go back to reporting the news again. People want to hear the news. They don't want to hear that Brian Steller or, whoever the flakes were that they had attacking right wing all the time. The same thing with Fox. Fox is getting into the same problem because they understand. Just report the news. Tell us what the news is. Don't tell us what to think.
Well, and that's CNN's problem is they've got this huge identity crisis. At least Fox News, they know they're Republican. MSNBC, they know they're Democrat. CNN always kind of said, well, what are we left? Are we right? No. We're kind of neither. But then you attract neither. And you're also not doing journalism. You're not sending embedded reporters to go across the world doing these undercover investigations. You're not 60 Minutes. You're not helping consumers. You're just fluff. You're just nothing is what CNN became.
Why are they hanging on to Don Lemon, for example? Okay, he's always shown his liability. It's almost like they don't have enough sense to move it through when it's not working. So at this point, they're bringing in everybody. They're bringing in Barkley. They're bringing in Bill Maher. They're bringing in celebrities. The celebrities are now going to be giving the news. And that's a little scary. Did you see, every time I think of celebrities telling me what I ought to think about politically, I think of Chelsea Handler. Do you know the story about Chelsea Handler, where when she was 40 years old, I'm not making this up. If you don't believe me, Google this story. When she was 40 years old is the first time she knew that the sun was different than the moon. She thought it was all one entity. And when she went to Africa, somebody explained, no, they're two different things at 40 years old. So now Licht is saying, well, let's bring in all the celebrities to give us the news. Doesn't that scare you just a little bit?
Yeah, and they bring in the celebrities and their ratings continue to go down. They've tried, okay, we're going to do town halls. We're going to have a town hall with was it Glenn Youngkin? He's going to tell us all the right-wing policies. It tanked. You had their traffic that day
our
was
traffic
so
is
bad.
better than our traffic is better than their traffic.
Right.
Okay.
I
Come
never
on.
thought we'd be doing better than CNN.
Yeah.
But here we are. But that's the problem is CNN, like all the rest of these corporate news outlets, they thought they could tell the news without telling the news to piss off their advertisers. You can't do that. So you have to make that choice. Do we seek alternative means of funding to be able to tell the news, or do we keep going down this hole of, sensationalized daily stories of garbage and lose the audience?
Well, our audience, we're not left or right on this show. I mean, our politics, mine are very left, your politics are very left. But I feel like we have to at least tell the story.
Right.
Let everybody else decide. I mean, and people are smart enough to do that. And that's what CNN did for a long time.
Right.
They reported the news. And then that idiot, Zucker, has he got another job right now? Do you know?
I haven't seen anything. I haven't looked, so
I
I
bet
don't know.
he's working for another network. The guy he wasn't qualified when he started to begin with. Licht is marginally qualified, and the stuff that he's doing is a disaster.
Well, it's like, Licht was put in charge of the plane that's already crashing, saying, okay, you're the pilot now, but there's nothing you can do.
Take the wheel. Right, take the wheel. I kind of feel sorry for the guy, man. Anyway, we'll see where it lands. Well, we'll see where it crashes, not where it lands. Hunter Biden has decided that he's tired of being a punching bag, so he's going to start fighting back. He's now filed a lawsuit against the computer repair shop owner for violating his privacy. Okay, why don't you lead with this story?
This is really interesting to me just because of the potential legal ramification, not for Hunter Biden, not for the laptop repair owner, but for actual real Americans. This case could impact you.
Totally.
So here's what it is. Hunter Biden's laptop obviously ends up in the hands of John Paul Mac Isaac at his laptop repair shop. Nobody ever comes to pick it up. As far as I know, nobody paid for the repair. So store policy, you didn't pay for it, you didn't pick it up, the time passed, this is now my laptop. And from there, of course, we know that the photos on there, the information was then given to people like Rudy Giuliani and Tucker Carlson. And so now, a couple years later, Hunter Biden says, this is a violation of my privacy. You've released items that did not belong to you, so I'm suing. But the question is, who did they belong to because of him leaving the laptop?
Okay, now first of all, that analysis is brilliant.
Thank you.
It's brilliant. The question becomes, and it's going to become a question more and more, because does that computer repairman own the computer? Does he have the right to use the computer, or does he have the right to use the content of the computer? That's the point you're making there, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the problem I see for Hunter Biden. When you bring a case like that, you open the door to almost limitless cross-examination, all right? So if I'm cross-examining Hunter, I'm saying, okay, now which part of the information in that computer was not already public? Was it your relationship with prostitutes? Was it your relationship with Ukraine or China? Was it your story about your baby mama, you not paying her, child support? You see the problem.
Yeah.
You're going to hear the very worst of the attacks coming up again. And he's got to say, well, the violation of my privacy was A, B, and C. But if A, B, and C is already in the public domain, there's no violation of privacy, period.
Right.
But your point, I think, is a brilliant point. The point is, who owns, what is it that shop owner actually has the right to own? The physical computer or the contents of the computer?
Right. And so one of the things that we know that came out of the computer were all the pictures of Hunter Biden. And there are pictures that obviously depict drug use and things like that, the Eminem thing. So do those pictures, upon forfeiture of the laptop, does the owner, John Paul Mac Isaac, is he now the intellectual property rights owner of those photographs, or does that stick with Hunter Biden? That is a question the courts have not ever answered.
And I'm saying to you, by this lawyer advising him to do this, a lawyer on the other side is going to be attacking Hunter Biden, saying, let's go through the litany of everything, the prostitutes, the drug use, whatever it is. Let's go through the litany. You tell me what part is a violation of your privacy. But as he goes through that litany, it's all just another big public explosion about that issue. Issues that people will forget about. Well, they won't forget about it if the cross-examination is done properly on Hunter Biden.
Right, and if Hunter's lawyers screw this up badly enough to where this gets appealed and appealed and appealed, then we could be looking at the Supreme Court deciding who owns your photographs on your device.
That's right.
Because a lot of people...
Think what that does to the tech industry.
Well, exactly, because when you buy a phone and the people who buy it on the payment plan and pay every month, if you don't pay, you forfeit that phone. So suddenly, does that mean AT&T or Apple now own all your photographs?
Yeah.
That is what this case has the potential if it goes up there.
I love your analysis.
We could lose a lot of rights with this case.
I love your analysis there. I think it's very smart.
Thank you.
Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump have spent the week hitting one another in the media. But behind the scenes, Florida's Republican leaders, well, they want absolutely nothing to do with the fight. They are scared to death to open their mouths about who are you going to support. First of all, you have an entire collection of ass clowns, okay? Both in Florida, certainly in Florida. The legislature in Florida, if I were to give you a picture, the picture I would have is a picture of an ass clown. It's like you have the biggest collection of ass clowns we've ever had in Florida. So you're going to go to that person and say, hey, who's your guy? Pick it up from there.
Yeah, Politico, they did exactly that. They came down to Florida. They started asking all the state legislatures, state senators, state party leaders, okay, look, you got two guys in Florida. They're the two front runners for the nomination on the Republican side. Who do you like? They said, I'm not wading into that. I'm not getting into this mess. And a lot of them actually said, oh, I know who I support, but I'm not stupid enough to tell you out loud. And the overwhelming response in addition to that is everybody wants this feud to end. It's not going to end because DeSantis is sucking up spotlight. Trump wants it all on him. And they don't know, the two of them, both massive egos, they don't know how to coexist and let Trump be 2024, DeSantis be 2028. Neither of them want that to happen, so it's going to be a bloodbath.
Our responsibility here is to tell the story about what DeSantis has done to Florida consumers with that big gaggle of ass clowns in legislature right now. They have decimated the rights of consumers to have any voice in court anymore. They're trying to close the courtroom door for consumers. He knows it. He's the one that's going to sign off on it. And when he does, we'll start talking in real detail about how dangerous this guy is.
And he's allowed these power companies to have these massive mergers throughout the state that have jacked up our power prices 3 to 4 times what they were 2 years ago. And that's not an exaggeration. That's about what our bills are now.
No, it's 4 to 5 times.
And he's allowed the major Wall Street banks to come in and buy up entire communities and price people out of the housing market. We have had the highest housing price increase in the United States out of all 50 states.
You know what he just did this week? He was the guy that was behind getting the ass clowns to say, let's have a law where a person can't sue or is limited in being able to sue their insurance company when their medical malpractice takes place or when a hurricane comes through and destroys their home. Let's really limit that consumer's right of redress in a courtroom. He knew exactly what he was doing. It's a payoff to the Chamber of Commerce so he can run for president. And the people suffering are Florida consumers. We're going to continue doing these stories where we show you what he is about, because he's about to become the next president of the United States if we're not careful. Farron Cousins, thank you for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but all of these segments are going to be available throughout the week, and make sure you follow us on Twitter at America's Lawyer. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where every week we tell you stories that the corporate media can't tell you because their advertisers don't let them, or their political connections are so tight that it doesn't allow them to tell the story. We'll see you next time.